Back now, live on the floor, E3 2015 at the PlayStation booth from Insomniac Games. Sean McCabe, production director on the new Ratchet and Clank.
Yes. And I heard you're a huge fan.
I'm a big fan, and I'm excited to see this.
Cool, I am too. So
because I think like a lot of people thought, because this was what was originally the plan.
Yeah.
This was going to be a straight remake of the original Ratchet and Clank.
I mean, that's where we started. We started thinking, you know, what can we do with this, you know, when the opportunity came up. And it started, and that's the first thing we said, is can it really be a remake? And immediately we're like, I don't think that we can just do that. Like, we have to go beyond an up-res. You know, that's what people are really going to want. And so we kind of went down this path of a reimagining, where we took the classic spirit of the PlayStation 2 titles, and we brought to it a lot of the things that we've learned through the PlayStation 3 future titles. And because we're Insomniac, and for people that don't know this, like, we have a lot of trouble doing anything that's small. And so we kept adding things as we went along, and the game just got bigger and bigger.
Now.
Oh, that's a really good example.
It looks so nice.
The old train had 4 cars, and now this one has many, many cars and fish and all kinds of things. And it's just an example of, like, sort of the creative process we went through. And you know, at a certain point, it became this whole new beginning to Ratchet.
Yeah,
it evolved into that.
There was a joking quote that you guys did that was called "The game based on the movie based on the game."
That is brilliant, and I love saying that. And you know what? People actually understand it too. It's like that really is where it came from. We started, you know, working with Blockade and Rainmaker, the producers of the film, at the very beginning, and so these projects have sort of evolved together.
Which I love, because then you're borrowing from each other, and it's just building and growing, and like, wow. It looks so beautiful.
It's crazy, and like since you're a Ratchet fan, like Metropolis is the first thing we ever built. You know, back in, it might have been in 2000.
Yeah.
For a demo for Sony, and we always like to come back here because it says everything about Ratchet, just the visual style. I mean, everything about it. But I think our dream in the beginning was to let people play a feature animated film.
Yeah.
And when we built this one, we just kind of saw that we were really, really close to hitting it. And when you look out on these vistas, when you see the visual fidelity and sophistication, like, this is Metropolis as we've always wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, one of my first, you know, PS2 memories of being really blown away was seeing Metropolis.
Yeah.
And you guys have done such a great job of recreating that moment of still, like, I know that we're going to go see Metropolis, and it's still just like, oh wow, this is
like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
Like, what is it like now?
So you guys have not just kind of reimagined, you've built out a lot of these set pieces and action things and made them a lot bigger, and you're using kind of an interesting narrative device to make that happen. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, everybody's favorite, at least my favorite, Captain Quark, is the narrator. So he is telling the story of the game based on a holo film, based on another game or real-life experience.
It's the inception of Ratchet and Clank games.
Yeah, it is. It gets there's so many layers at a certain point. Very ambiguous ending. But he's telling the story from his perspective, and as everybody knows about Captain Quark, he tends to embellish, and you never really know what the true story is. And you know, beyond just appearing in cutscenes, he's also the narrator. So he'll talk sometimes. He'll say, the heroes realized they needed to jump a little bit higher, or something like that.
Oh, okay. So he's also just kind of like, hey,
yes.
Here's a little help.
Yeah, so you'll hear lots of Captain Quark.
So, you know.
And here we are, Gaspar. This is great. So Gaspar did appear in the classic Ratchet. And just an interesting factoid about it, it is the smallest level in the original Ratchet and Clank. You know, it just has one mission. And we have that mission. James is showing you a little bit. And I think that, you know, like, almost every little piece of the game ends up changing because, you know, like, adding modern controls, you know, adding the ability to aim and shoot. There's so many just kind of butterfly effect things that happen where it ends up feeling really different. But this is
pixelizer gun.
And the pixelizer is the most awesome thing ever. It took the PlayStation 4 to really bring blocky graphics to the next level somehow.
That's ridiculous. You wouldn't think that would be the case at all.
So what we are going to see, because like that is the original Gaspar segment reimagined. What we want to show you is what we've added. And so in the Ratchet and Clank games, we have this idea of an exploration planet, and that's like a place that you go and maybe you're collecting Leviathan souls or you're collecting Raritanium. the whole thing about it is that you're going out, you're exploring, and you're choosing like what you want to do. That didn't start until Going Commando.
Right.
So that wasn't in the original, and we have brought that to the new Ratchet & Clank. So what we're going to show you here is an entirely new segment of Gaspar that's built as an exploration planet.
I'm just like jaw open.
It is as gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, I look at it all the time, and I'm just like, these people, you know, these artists like really love Ratchet. Like, there's so much Ratchet experience, but then so many, you know, so many fans, so many people like me that I didn't work on the original, but I was drawn to Insomniac after playing that E3 demo, that Metropolis demo.
Right.
And so there's so many people on the team that are in a similar situation. So this guy is a Blarg scientist. He's not necessarily like totally evil. He's more evil,
Right.
neutral evil, if you will. And what he really needs is to find some telepathopus brains, amateur neuroscience. I should also mention, too, that TJ Fixman, who's a longtime series writer, wrote this.
Okay.
And so it's every bit as hilarious as, like, everything's ever done. I'm a huge fan of his.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you're single. I love that.
So this fellow, like, really needs some brains, and so he's going to send you out into Gaspar to collect brains.
I love
He's going to do a lot of this deal, which is amazing.
I love that he's just flat out telling you, like, I'm trying to build a telepathic army.
Yeah, it's
Can you help me do that? It's like, okay, yeah.
This guy's like, you know, after so many great NPCs and characters we've had in Ratchet, like, this guy's like, got to be like a top 5, top 10 for me. Like, I totally love him. So some of the telepathopus brains are really easy to find because they're just inside these sacks that haven't been hatched yet. However, the really big score is to get the telepathopus brains. You actually have to take out those creatures when they're fully matured.
Okay.
So we're just going through and seeing some of it. You have some of the crabs. Some enemies might be familiar to folks. And that pixelizer. You know what's interesting too? Like, we have a rule sort of with Ratchet weapons that they need to be, you know, funny, visually spectacular, but also really effective. And the pixelizer like totally nails that. It is like, it just feels really good to use.
Yeah.
In
I love that
addition
you can walk over afterwards and just break them into their component pixels. That's such a great touch.
Yeah, it's great. And our arsenal, I should mention, it's a lot of sort of greatest hits weapon. We kind of got in a room, we went on our community, and we made a list of like what are the weapons we want to bring back into this. So, you know, we'll see some of the best weapons, like the Groovatron is back.
Oh wow.
You have to be able to make everything in the game dance. But then again, going back to that, we're Insomniac. We just had to like add a couple of weapons here. Was 15 years ago, of course, but I think it still has that playful spirit, and it also like kind of tugs at the heartstrings. I think that, you know, the filmmakers have done a fantastic job telling Ratchet & Clank's origin story, and we really wanted to bring that to the new PlayStation 4 title.
And are there new, you know, aside from these bigger missions and these newer characters, are there newer chunks of the game that have been added that are just straight from the movie, or how closely have you guys been working together?
We've worked really close together from the beginning, and so like the game and the movie have the same they have the same bones, they have the same like big plot points. The game expands upon it a ton. You know, there's about an hour of additional cinematics in it that are custom for the game, and some of that's just because the game is the games we're looking at something as full-size Ratchet game like a Crack in Time, and so you need all that additional like narrative richness and depth, which I think fans will really enjoy. At the same time, like working with them from the beginning, I think one of the most important things is that they capture the spirit of Ratchet, and they were great to work with. They were really responsive, and you know, and I think they've really just done a great job. Like, there's this first point that I think was in our trailer where you see them meet for the first time, and it works perfectly.
Yeah, that was great. And so, but was there anything?
We got a jetpack now.
Nice.
So now he's going after the big game, to these telepathopi. And I have to pick. I know.
What?
It has to work. It works on everything. I know, it's awesome.
That's so great.
Bosses, everything. And so we've brought the jetpack. to the new Ratchet and Clank, and that's you kind of need it because Gaspar is this lava planet. It doesn't have bridges and walkways, and you have to find a way to get across the whole thing. But you can just see, like, in the distance how gigantic this is.
Yeah.
And so James has gotten 12 brains so far, but I think there's close to 100 to capture in there.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when you bring in things like the Groovatron, when you bring in things like the jetpack, stuff like that, do you rethink some of the stuff from earlier? Does that change the way you go back and design original stuff?
I mean, there's a little bit of that because there are always things that we want to tweak and improve, and because we learn things as we go. But at the same time, like, I think it's super important to, capture the spirit of the original one. So there is like this balancing thing. With the Groovatron, it's usually pretty easy. Like, we want to show people funny dances, and so they understand something like that.
Yeah.
With something like the jetpack, like, one of the biggest changes is the way Ratchet banks as he's moving, and there's a lot more motion in his ears. It's like just the performance is a lot more compelling and sophisticated. But we still want it to feel fun, and like, people love the jetpack and Into the Nexus.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that we we hit those kind of sacred cows and then build upon it in the right way.
Did you ever come across something where adding it just completely made you rethink a level or rethink an area? I mean. Yeah.
I mean, this is gonna sound really silly, but strafing, like the ability just to strafe, you couldn't do that in the first game, and so this game has sort of modern shooter controls for when you're aiming and using a gun. But what that means is, like, the enemy AI has to change. Like, some of the layouts have to change. Like, we have to put cover in the environment, which didn't appear in the first one. So these really little changes can be kind of have this big effect. But I mean, it's kind of fun to go through that process.
Yeah,
I think.
Absolutely. And I imagine you guys are constantly just sort of working out that balance between the new and old, so it just always feels right. That's got to be something kind of strange to do.
It is. It's a real challenge, and I think, like, one of the secret weapons. So this is one of the.
Wow.
This is a additional cutscene that's exclusive to the game. This is and the amazing thing about this is rendered in real time, in game, in engine, and I think that this sort of speaks to realizing that goal of letting people play future animated production.
Yeah, I mean, that's gorgeous. That's like the production art from the original one.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Gotten to that level where it is just this total reproduction of what it looked like.
And there are a number of folks that worked on the original that worked on this, and so they're really the people that have gotten to see this from start to finish. And for them, I mean, that's got to be really special. So of course
who
we
are
have
we
to
fighting
pixelize
here?
This is the Blargian Snagglebeast, which fans might remember. He's been almost completely reimagined, but he has such an awesome name. He has my favorite dance in the game. Like,
wow. Wow. Okay.
So that happened. This is like one of my favorite weapons. I think this first was in Tools of Destruction, the Predator launcher.
Okay.
And you can see here you can shoot 3 or 4 rockets at once. But since we've added upgrades to this game, you can upgrade it to where you can shoot up to 8 rockets. It gets completely ridiculous at a certain point.
That is insanity.
I do. I love it. And this was a boss that, like, kind of, I think everybody enjoyed from the first one, so we wanted to find a good place for it. In this case, it's been.
I love the leg lifts.
They are. They're doing like this kind of jazzercise thing.
Yeah.
For those of you that remember VHS cassettes in 1984.
Yeah. Kids, ask your
parents. That's what they're doing. Yeah, they do.
What jazzercise was. Man.
And I don't know, and you'll see, like, at the end of this, but the Blargian scientists are also here.
Oh, okay.
And they're also evil, but mostly just ridiculous. We had a lot of fun with those guys. I'm obviously, like, a crazy fan of like this new faction. And so
they seem like they have this cartoony, more egotistical than evil, and just kind of like neurotic and sort of into themselves.
Yeah, that's Ratchet. That's like what we want to. That's what we want to hit. We want the stakes to matter, right? We want people to really care about what's happening in this universe, but at the same time have a lot of fun with it. And those guys, like, I think, perfectly capture that.
God.
And so you can upgrade weapons by using them. They'll just upgrade the more you get them. But there's also a Raritanium upgrade mini game in there. So if you're a nerd like me and you like to like customize everything, I mean, the sky's the limit for you.
That's great. This is awesome. So what is the target release date here for Ratchet & Clank?
It's spring 2016. The film is coming out in the U.S., released by Focus Features, April 29th. And I think the international release, we want to get them all out around the same time. We feel that they're kind of companion products and people will enjoy the whole thing together. I mean, it's so much Ratchet that people are going to get next year, so.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's great for us.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to it. Sean McCabe,
cool.
Thank you so much for coming by and showing that off. It looks amazing, man.
My pleasure.
Up next, Meredith has a hands-on demo with Rocket League.
PlayStation